A few years ago, I used to run around my house with these little red mittens on, pretending that I was Spider-Man. Am I the only by show of no? Maybe I don't want to have a show of hands.
I'm really scared of that. That terrifies me.
Yeah.
Since I was a little kid, I always dreamed of being able to sort of live out my own adventure as my favorite superhero, who was Spider-Man, for so many reasons. Never thinking that we would ever have the opportunity to do it in real life. You can only do so much in your house by yourself, pretending that you are Spider-Man. Who has also had those sort of same visions and imaginations, whether you're a kid or somewhat of an adult? If it's just me, that's fine. Me and the one guy over here. That's cool. We just bonded. Who has had those experiences in a Disney park? Who's had it in Walt Disney World? Disneyland? Any of the overseas Disney parks? Nice. Where'd you go? Sweet. Where'd you go? Somebody else had their hands up. Paris. Nice. Well, we're going to take a journey through time and around the world as we discuss Marvel in the Disney parks. I am Lou Mongello. I am the host of WDW Radio. I've been podcasting about Disney and Marvel and Star Wars for about 20 years. And I cannot do this, nor could I do the show alone. And so I brought along one relative and one friend, who's sort of like a relative. This is Beci Mahnken. She is the owner of Mouse Fan Travel, my longtime partner for about 18 or so years. And for just a little bit of a longer period of time, this has been my son, Nicolas Mongello. From me. Nicolas is from me. I mean, there was somebody else involved too, but that's fine. That's not why you're here.
Wow.
The crazy thing is we don't know who.
Right.
So.
This is not the panel I signed
Yeah, listen, I think you can still get into the Breakfast Club panel for those of you, or maybe you couldn't, and that's why you're here. And if so, thank you very much for being here, because if I didn't have to be here, I'd be at the Breakfast Club panel. We're going to talk about Marvel in the Disney parks and Disney cruise lines, talk a little bit about some of the behind the scenes, what has been here, what is no longer here, and what the future might hold. And I think before we do that, I think we need to explore a little bit about the history of Disney characters the history of Marvel characters in the parks, because it does not start with Disney, and it doesn't start in Walt Disney World. Back in 1994, which to me still sounds like 5 years ago, back in 1994, Marvel signed a deal with MCA Recreation Services, which is now Universal Destinations for their theme parks, as they were developing Marvel Superhero Island for Islands of Adventure, where they created attractions like The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, the Hulk Coaster, and had walk-around characters from Spider-Man, X-Men, Captain America. And even when Disney bought Marvel, to very much our surprise, in 2009, that contract remained in effect, preventing Disney from using Marvel characters in Walt Disney World, or really anywhere east of the Mississippi. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Who's experienced the Marvel characters in Universal Studios? Who has experienced the Marvel characters in Universal Studios and goes, why do they look so weird? Why do they look like the comics? And because that's all part of a very convoluted agreement that they had. They are only allowed to use the character sort of in their comic book format. So when I took my kids there, they're like, who is the funny looking green guy? What? No?
No, I was like, the Spider-Man ride's awesome.
Not
here before?
No, I agree. As somebody who has loved Spider-Man, I still think all these years later, like Spider-Man is one of, if not the best Marvel-centered attractions anywhere worldwide.
Yeah, absolutely. It was mind-blowing when it first opened up. The technology behind that had never been seen before. To be able to be transported up 80 floors and then down 80 floors, and that you're actually only moving just a few inches off the ground. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's again, so I'm a recovering attorney, so I don't want to get too deep into the legalities of it, because it is a very sort of convoluted agreement. But they only have rights to characters that they are actively using, which leaves a lot of loopholes for Disney and their legal team, which is why, Guardians of the Galaxy was not really well known by anybody other than a couple of nerds and Scott in the front row. So that's why, why aren't Guardians why wouldn't Universal just have Guardians? Nobody really knew about that. That's why they were able to have Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, which may or may not be one of the all-time very best Disney attractions. Show of hands, who agrees?
offer?
I have ridden that attraction dozens of times. For the love of God, man, just give me Everybody Wants to Rule the World so my life can be complete.
Have you not done that yet?
And every time I go, somebody curses it. You know what? You're going to get September again, and Conga comes on, and there I am. It's me and Gloria Stefan. But it is, and we have the benefit as Disney fans of having that. So, you know, it's the reason why, like if you notice in the Disney parks and Walt Disney World, you don't see the word Marvel anywhere. It's just Guardians of the Galaxy. For a long time, it was the superhero store. I think now it's the Marvel superhero store in Disney Springs, but that really has been, to a certain degree, all that we've been able to see in Walt Disney World.
Yeah, like I was always thinking as those movies were coming, like why they weren't doing anything. And then as I looked further into it and realized the legality of it, I was like, I started to understand why.
Well, and then all of us are sitting there
We
going,
only have one mic, by the way. So.
yeah. So for me, it's kind of amazing because you look at the legalities, you look at the contract, and you think, there's a lot of money to be made here that can be handed over to the other side, and why have they not come to some sort of agreement here that clearly Universal's smart because they are holding on to something for the best deal they can possibly get. But as you pointed out earlier, when we were discussing it, that means Disney can, or that Universal can look into their books. So there's some reasons, some pros and cons for both sides as to why we can't have this. And the other one besides Guardians that we can do in Disney World is Doctor Strange. That's
Yeah. We'll talk about sort of that those sort of very brief, mysterious. He really sort of like pops in and sort of waves his way out. But look, I say it every year, and eventually I'm going to be right. That if I'm Universal Studios, you're right. Not just in addition to having to open up my books to Disney, which I'm sure they're not very happy about doing, because they are locked into using these comic characters that are not necessarily relatable to a lot of people who are not uber comic nerds, there's a disconnect for kids that go there and go, I don't understand. These are not the characters that I'm used to seeing on screen.
And just wait till Doctor Doom comes out. That's going to be at another level that people are going to go, what's that guy walking around Universal Studios? So hopefully that might jar something out of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool with Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom coming out. There is some more relevance for kids who might not be familiar with the comics. But I also think, too, Universal has, a bit of a space problem, and that's some pretty valuable landscape there. Between that and, like, Beetle Bailey Land or whatever the area is next door that, like, I take my kids through, they're like, who are these? Who's Betty? What's a Betty Boop do? And what's a rickshaw, I don't even know where it is. Ricksaw Falls.
Yes.
Wow. Whatever.
Keep going.
Don't take Ripsaw Falls. You're acting like I was born yesterday. Like, come on, man.
So we have, look, we know at least, I think a little bit, I think there are some more announcements that are coming. So we know in terms of Disney in Walt Disney World, there are plans for, by the way, I don't work for the company, just to be clear. So if I say we by accident, I don't mean we. But we know that Monsters, Inc. Land is coming to Disney's Hollywood Studios. Cars and Villains are coming to Magic Kingdom. And look, we all know that there is this desperate desire to have Marvel come to Walt Disney World. Anybody go to D23 Expo last year? Anybody go to the Parks and Resorts panel be like, this is it. This is when they announced that we're finally at the fifth gate and it's going to be a Marvel themed, and it's not happening. I think it might be something that is coming down, and I think it's honestly something that's coming sooner rather than later. I really do believe there is such a need for Marvel in Walt Disney World and such a desire for it. And I think that is going to be the thing that is going to make that, metaphorical, family from Ohio who only comes once every 5 years go, yeah, we need to go and book another trip to Disney.
Right, especially if they're looking at what comes next. What comes after Epic, right? So Epic Universe comes out and Disney's going to have to figure out what's next. And Marvel seems to be what could fill that spot, if.
Yeah. Yeah, so we talked about Guardians of the Galaxy being really the only presence in Walt Disney World. And we do see Star-Lord and Gamora come out in front of the attraction. Every now and then at a Run Disney event, you might see them pop out as well. But I think a lot of people forget about the Doctor Strange Discover the Mystic Arts. Anybody ever see that at Disney's Hollywood Studios? I didn't expect anybody except her hand to go up because it was here for a very short period of time around 2016, and with very little fanfare, Doctor Strange shows up on Pixar Place near where Toy Story Land was being built, and they created a little facade to resemble Bleecker Street in New York City, home to the Sanctum Sanctorum, And he performed, magic tricks, not like, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat, but demonstrated for ways for kids to discover the mystic arts. And what I loved about it, it was this thing that you didn't have to line up for, you didn't have to queue up for. It just sort of appeared. It just sort of happened. And if you paid really close attention, and I'm a total nerd, it's like how I started. I started writing trivia books about Disney World. There was a little Daily Bugle newspaper box right off to the side, and it had a headline, Strange Incidents in the City, featuring Doctor Strange, and some other text that was a little hard to read, and you're like, this is it. Nicolas, I'm telling you, watch, Marvel's coming to Disney's Hollywood Studios, and that was 9 years ago.
Yeah. And every year, we have this discussion every single year. It's got to be this year. This is a sign. This is a signal. But I think, it all comes down to for-profit corporations and lawyers. And pretty soon, they've got to come to an agreement, because at one point, the balance, it will be balanced out, where Universal's going to get what they want, Disney's going to get what they want, and then it's going to break open the gates. But it just depends on how long it's going to take to get there.
Because the way the contracts are written now, it's basically Universal owns the rights to the characters that they're actively using east of the Mississippi, which is weird, because Disney Cruise Line, Port Canaveral, based on my maps, is sort of east of the Mississippi, whatever. It's fine, it works.
Just wanted to add on to the Doctor Strange thing. I think they used that sort of as a survey to test the interest in Doctor Strange, which would further pay dividends when they eventually came out with the Doctor Strange show in California.
Yeah, and so speaking of California, at Disney California Adventure, they have Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. Who's written it? Woo-hoo. All right, show of hands. Who thinks Guardians of the Galaxy is better than the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror?
Sorry,
did somebody just hiss in the background? Again, this transformation of the exact same ride system becoming something that has this incredible read-rideability factor to it. Who's ever ridden Tower of Mission Breakout during Halloween and had the special Halloween experience?
I haven't ridden it during Halloween.
You haven't ridden it during Halloween?
You haven't taken it.
I am the worst father ever.
It's, for me, I was a big Twilight Zone fan. So when they talked about doing the overlay, it was like, don't take that away from me, no. But then when Mission Breakout came out, it's a party and a ride. There's no feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm going to die on this thing. You want to go and you want to get in there and you want to sing the songs and you want to have a party in that car, and then you want to do it again every single time. So I think it was brilliant.
And I think that whole land is just so replete, not just with attractions, right? There's obviously Web Slingers, the Spider-Man adventure, which is sort of a game, and right, it's the gamification of your experience. Because I think we as guests no longer, for the most part, want passive experiences. We want to feel like we have some stake in the story and how it plays out. And I think the gamification, the challenge, the cooperative element adds a whole nother layer to it. It also is a great way for you to buy all the different accessories so you can actually get the high scores. It's fine. Doctor Strange has its own Mysteries of the Magic Arts show, which I think is one of the best sort of, I can't even call it a stage show because it happens sort of in this almost theater in the round. There's also a lot of character meet and greets, and this rotating lineup of Spider-Man, Captain America, Black Panther, Loki, the Spider-Man Stumptronic animatronic. If you didn't know that it was made out of like wires and metal, you would think that there was a man flipping through the air. Don't watch the video where he crashes into the wall. It's fine, get it done. But the utilization of that technology was perfect, specifically for Spider-Man. And one of the things I think Disneyland does so very well, and this is especially as the Disney Plus shows were coming up, a show would come out on a Tuesday night, and Wednesday morning that character would be there. And all of a sudden you're seeing, Loki, you're seeing, I'm drawing a complete blank.
Moon Knight.
You're seeing Moon Knight in the parks. And I was so frustrated because I couldn't get out there fast enough to see those characters who were in these shows that we were so heavily invested in.
Yeah, adding on to your point, the thing Avengers Campus does best is interactability. Just being able to interact with the different characters that are coming out at the time. Every ride has an interactable element to it, with Spider-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy being able to be rewritten over and over again. So it's constantly evolving and changing, which is what really sets it apart from the other lands.
Which is what they did, again, so brilliantly, is theming it as Avengers Campus, so it can move through time easily. We don't have to worry about going back and forth and figuring out what character is where. My favorite thing there, though, is that you can sit there, you can grab a shawarma, you can grab your Diet Coke, and then just watch
A
people.
shawarma and Diet Coke are so like, does it make you feel better ordering a Diet Coke at that point?
No. So, however, you sit there, you enjoy your shawarma, and you sip on your Diet Coke for the heck of it, and just watch it unfold around you, because the park is, or the land comes alive on its own. Different characters are walking through, people are walking through, a show goes on all of a sudden above. It's an amazing life, it's full of life. So no matter where you are, you could sit there for an entire day and see something different throughout the day.
And I think the best part of Avengers Campus is Avengers Campus.
Yeah.
For me, my favorite part of the experience is just sitting there and just watching things go by and listening to things as they go by. And then Disneyland's like, you know what? Let's turn this up to 11. Let's bring Deadpool and Wolverine into. Anybody ever see Deadpool and Wolverine in? How was it? Because I never got a chance to get out there and see it. I did watch the videos, and so brilliant for Disney and Marvel to be like, if we're going to bring Deadpool to the parks, he needs to be Deadpool without all of the Deadpool words, but still living like his best Deadpool life. And the fact that it sort of followed beats in terms of a script, but it was also a very dynamic show that had multiple iterations of it. You could go over and over and over again, and you could also take your entire family.
From the videos I saw, like going back to the ever evolving, like his story would change as news would come out and things would happen. So kind of adds on to that ever evolving element of Avengers Campus, which is what made it so special.
And I always wondered, because there's a few times that I would watch and I was like, oh, look at Deadpool getting very current affairs. Like, I wonder if Deadpool went backstage and like, Deadpool, we need to have a word. This is Disney legal about what you're actually allowed to and not say in the parks.
Well, I wouldn't say that after we saw D23 and Deadpool appearing during the panels and what he was doing with Josh. So, yeah.
Once it's live theater, man, all the gloves are off. Like, you just sort of pray that the person that you told to say what to say says it and doesn't go off script.
Deadpool.
And he has to be Deadpool. And I love the fact that he was Deadpool. The other thing I think that Disneyland does very well, anybody ever eat at Pym Test Kitchen? Mm-hmm. So Pym Test Kitchen, so first of all, this body did not happen naturally. The calories don't count thing is a complete lie in the Disney parks. I'm proof positive. But I love the fact that they leaned into, and we'll talk about another place I think that they do this even better. Sure. They leaned into the big food, the small food, making it sort of a very fun experience. But I think that they really leveled up that, and I think they learned from that when we get talking about Disney Cruise Line. A couple of you mentioned that you have been to Disneyland Paris. They also have their own Avengers Campus, very similar, although they do have another attraction there called Avengers Assemble Flight Force. Imagine Rock and Roller Coaster with Iron Man and Captain Marvel. And I don't know about the rest of you, I don't speak French, I have a tough enough time with English, but they do a really good job of allowing the characters, one to speak in French and one to speak in English, so that you're able to, at least to follow along what is going on in terms of story. Again, they also have the Spider-Man Web Adventure, which is similar to DCA's, and they have a Stark Factory restaurant there. But same thing, we've been there and characters come out. There's this great dynamic show between Thor and Loki that they have with Mjolnir that's interactive for not just kids, but adults in the parks as well.
Yeah, like adding back onto it, just there's constantly changing in every single Avengers Campus around the world.
I also loved the drone show. Yeah. That was amazing, where they took the Marvel theme and turned it into drones, which in Paris, they know how to do drones over there, and it was mind-blowing and one of the best shows that they've put on.
The finale of the drone show, it's not a spoiler anymore because it's not there, is against the Guardians of the Galaxy building. They make it look like Spider-Man is hanging off the side of the building, and it's just so incredibly well done. Speaking of well done and Marvel in the parks, we've been very fortunate to visit all of the Disney parks around the world. Their research trips. What? Including but not limited to Hong Kong Disneyland, where they have their version of the Stark Expo. They have an Iron Man experience, which is sort of really the first kind of Marvel Iron Man ride in the Disney parks. It is a flight simulator where Iron Man is defending Hong Kong. They also have the Ant-Man and the Wasp Nano Battle, which is sort of a Buzz Lightyear-like shooting ride featuring shrinking tech and shield. We haven't seen that as yet. All really well done. They translate very well to, again, it's culturally very different. But one of the best things,
Hands down.
like I know that she's we visited in 2017. We were doing a group trip out there, really having no idea what to expect. And they had this walk-through, run-through attraction literally built, we didn't realize until after, it was literally built in shipping containers that were put together and sort of hollowed out. And they had this multi-stage walk/run-through attraction. They were speaking like Cantonese. I had no idea what we were doing, but we knew, when they said run, we ran. But it had Thor and Doctor Strange and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The lawyers in America would never let this happen. It was such an absolute death trap, but done really, really well. And I never felt unsafe. But in terms of storytelling and in terms of true immersion, there were these moments where doors would open and all of a sudden you were in Asgard. And then you'd go through something else and all of a sudden you were doing something with Doctor Strange, or you became an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., where it was this physical, we use the word immersive as this marketing buzzword, but that really is a thing, I think, over anything else that really sort of qualifies to use that term.
Right. So this is probably the number one thing I've ever done Marvel themed in any Disney park. And it went from June 14th to October 8th, 2017. It was temporary. This is the thing that told me, never ever just walk past something if you don't know what it is. Try it and go see it. Because we were like, what's that? I don't know. Well, we have time. Let's go in there. Wow. It's called Marvel Mission Dimensions of Danger. And there is a YouTube video that somebody did in the English version that kind of talks you through it. But we walked in there and not knowing what to expect, and all of a sudden experiencing this technology that when he said, yes, they made you run, they're like, you go into one place that they talk about the Nexus portal that you have to guide to all of the sanctums, basically. And at one point, he sits there and he goes, okay, you know what you need to do. Oh my gosh, they're attacking. Run, run, run. And you're literally going, we're running. And so you're running as fast as you can to the next position, where there was Hawkeye and Black Widow that were battling. And then you end up somewhere else where Doctor Strange is telling you about the portal. And then a moment later, he does his little hand gesture and a portal opens up and you walk through the portal and you're in Asgard. It was mind-blowing. We looked at each other, how did they do that? But of course, Thor is there, and I kind of like Thor. And there's this
Don't make it weird, this kid's present.
I know, but this was actually kind of cool because he does pick somebody out of the audience to help and talk about the portal. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I speak English, this is great, so does he, this is awesome. So I'm ready to go up there, and he goes, here, make sure to record this for me. And he like steps out and goes up to Thor. So yeah, that was my best memory of that. But
it's funny, because she's not bitter like 9 years later.
So bitter. But it really was a temporary thing. It was a test market to see what they could do through a walkthrough. And we've seen some of the elements show up in other pieces in the parks, but that was masterful. And if I was hoping they would just pick it up and bring it to one of the parks, it was that good.
And that's the conversation we had over our noodles and dumplings right after, which was, well, this has to be a test, right? They're running it through, they're testing it through, putting it through its paces here, because they're going to bring some iteration like this, or just pick up these shipping containers and bring them over. That was 9 years ago, and we're still waiting for some type of experience like that. By the way, I meant to say at the beginning, this is not a presentation, this is a discussion. So if you have any questions, comments, raise your hand, shout it out, whatever it might be. And that poor guy that left, he should have stayed, because if you stay till the very end, maybe we'll answer some questions, and we might even have some giveaways as well. Oh, see, now Bet your Breakfast Club isn't giving anything away. So. Shanghai Disneyland, again, they don't have a full Marvel land there. They do have meet and greets with Spider-Man and Marvel characters. I wonder, as we start to speculate towards what the future might bring, if this could be one of the places that is primed for an additional expansion. Same thing for Tokyo Disneyland and Disney Sea, which, if you've never been before, I love Walt Disney World, but Tokyo and Disney Sea is on a completely different level. It is absolutely a Tokyo Disney Sea is what happens when you say, Imagineering, here's all the money that you need, go do whatever you want and go have fun. And that's what ends up being Tokyo.
that's the beauty of Avengers Campus, is that the concept can honestly work anywhere. So them taking a Stark Expo or an Avengers Campus or a Doctor Strange Magical Land, they could put it any park and it'll work.
Well, I think too about the thing about Avengers Campus is that it's not necessarily, and I think very much by design, it allows itself the flexibility to have any character appear at any time. Because you might be like, whoa, wait a second. Loki does not live in the same world as Moon Knight, and the timing of this, and calm down, nerds. Like, it's okay, because you can just sort of have, it's not sort of meant to represent a space and time. It's meant to represent a place that was sort of this Stark research campus. And there's a, if you go and just sort of slowly allow yourself to take it all in, there's a great backstory that you can find on every wall in every building. It is replete with Easter eggs. That is a ton of fun and references other characters that we don't see there, possibly yet. But who's ever been on a Disney cruise? Who wants to go on a Disney cruise? We're doing a group tomorrow. There's still time. Becky will take your name and credit card right. Who's ever done, no, she probably will. Who's ever done a Marvel Day at Sea? Oh.
So
If you are a Marvel fan and you are a Disney cruise fan, it is one of the Marvel Day at Sea cruise is my favorite Disney cruise experience, other than traveling to Alaska. It is available on select Disney Cruise Line sailings. It is a single day where Marvel characters literally take over the entire ship, from background music to decor to every restaurant to the music that you hear to meet and greets, all the trivia things, which we've done before. Nicolas and I, we did trivia one time. We were doing very well in trivia, which was great. And we answered a question, and of course there's the one guy, he's like, actually, in Amazing Fantasy number 15, and we're like, dude, you can get a cheap keychain. Don't worry, it's fine. But the meet and greets, the themed activities, the stunt performers, more importantly, the show that they do at night on deck that takes place in front of you, above you, on the screen, all around you, and literally in the sky with the only cruise line that can do fireworks at sea, is by far the single best Disney stage show I have ever seen on land or at sea, period. Scott is agreed, yeah.
Imagine the pirate show, for those of you who've been on a cruise, imagine the pirate show on crack. It's actually
Dude, this is a Disney panel. You can't say crack here.
It's just a stage show elevated to such a high level, and it being on a cruise ship just brings it up 10 times more.
again, it lends into their immersion. I know we use the word immersive a lot and overuse it, but you are in the middle of what's going on around you with all of your favorite Marvel characters. And it's so cool just to have it. I personally, that I could argue it either way, it's a Marvel single day at sea. That one day is just incredible. The moment you get up, it's playing, the music is playing as you walk through the ship. Everything you eat is Marvel themed. I would love to have a whole Marvel cruise.
Right, I was going to say, could it sustain? Who would go on a cruise that was all Marvel all the time for all? Disney. If you're paying attention, everybody in the audience has their hand raised, because that's the thing that we would love, right? And that's the whole point of this conversation, is we just want it. Like, we just want to be immersed in that world. And the thing that's nice about the cruise is how many people, adults and kids, come in costume.
That's what I was going to say.
And sometimes costume changes as the day progresses.
Exactly, which allows you to be part of that world and to bring your fandom, whatever that is, into the Disney Cruise Line experience.
For the people paying Disney cruise prices, you know they're coming prepared. They're coming with like 4 costumes, and they're gonna know every little detail about every little trivia question, so you know you're gonna be among your people when you're there.
But it is a remarkable experience, and again, that they only do certain time. And I think too, so there's also a Worlds of Marvel restaurant on the 2 newest ships, the Disney Wish and the Disney Treasure. By the way, if you're thinking, quick aside, if you're thinking about taking a Disney cruise, the Disney Treasure, which we're going on again tomorrow, is possibly, from the day that it launched, became our favorite cruise ship. It takes storytelling to a whole new level with a Haunted Mansion parlor, a Jungle Cruise themed lounge, and a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea Periscope pub. But they also both have a Worlds of Marvel restaurant, which is this, on the Wish, it's like this very Ant-Man and Wasp themed dinner. It is on the Treasure too. And there are, I don't want to spoil too much, but you have this sort of quantum core that sits on your table that now on the Disney Treasure, there's trivia that rotates on the screens, but there's also a story that it takes you throughout the night. And on longer cruises, you'll have 2 nights on the Disney Treasure. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but the nice thing about using the screens in the restaurant is that you can change it out and you can update the story. And on the Disney Treasure, like a Marvel movie, you never leave when it's over, because if you stay till the very end, there's this amazing Easter egg that is teasing what I think is coming into the future of the MCU. If you want to know what I'm talking about, stay till the end and we can talk when I'm not going to spoil it for everybody.
Yeah.
Hi. Well, for me, and that's what's great about the Disney Treasure as opposed to the Wish, those who've been on the Wish, it's the exact same bones. However, the Treasure is a 7-night sailing as opposed to Wish, which is a 3 and 4. So you have more time to experience it, which is great because when you do go to Worlds of Marvel, you get those 2 different shows. So you get to see it twice, and sometimes you'll get it in there on a 3rd time as well. So if you're gonna go do the Treasure, do the 7 days, so you really get as much experience as you can on that ship.
You have a question?
You've been on the Treasure already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it have the same, we're going on the Wish on Monday, does it have the same elevator?
Yes.
Yeah.
But they're faster. No.
They
They do it, yeah. They don't have that center elevator bank. So if you've been on Disney Cruise Line before, they're usually 3 elevator banks. The Wish and the Treasure have 2 larger elevator banks, forward and aft, which not everybody loves. Listen, I think that the storytelling on the Disney Treasure is so good that it overcomes any of the design inadequacies that you might have found on the Wish. Yeah. So go on the Wish, and then just back to back on the Treasure, and then compare and contrast.
What you just said is kind of strong. I'm with elevators. So there's other cruise lines right now that have learned that destination elevators are awesome. I think Disney's going to implement that because it is an issue, especially when they're teeny tiny. I don't care. When it says 40 people can fit in it, no.
Becky doesn't like to walk.
How
Just
did
this-
we get to
I
elevators
have
from
no-
Marvel?
This guy brought up the elevator question. I think it's interesting though, and we're obviously look, 45 minutes goes very fast, so we're doing sort of a very sort of top level look at this. But I think it's interesting, this balance from the Imagineering perspective. They have all these characters and stories that they can choose from, and it's sort of balancing what they bring in from the MCU versus what they bring in from the comics, what they bring in from Disney Plus, and sort of how do they balance and make sure that they are putting in stories and characters that attract a very wide spectrum. I think what we're starting to see on Disney Plus especially are a lot of characters and stories that are geared towards a little bit of a younger demographic, and I think that you are starting to see and are definitely over the next 6, 8, 12 months going to see a lot more of, Kamala Khan and America Chavez.
Cool. And another thing, just adding on to that, like in Marvel, the parks get wacky with sort of the characters, so everyone has an appeal. Like you'll see Black Panther and Black Widow and random characters like fighting and talking. So that's kind of the beauty of it.
Someone had a question out there.
Hi.
When it comes to Walt Disney World specifically, we've talked a lot about what the different, ways they've implemented Marvel kind of everywhere. If you're talking about bringing more Marvel specifically here, 'cause I'm here, and I'm at Walt Disney World all the time. Where do you think, what attractions do you think we would probably see, or what elements of all the other parks do you think work best here, especially because we're Universal
Right.
right around the corner?
So basically speculating as to what is going to come next for Walt Disney World. And I was convinced and incredibly wrong that I thought this was going to be the year at D23 that Josh tomorrow, the chairman of Parks and Resorts, was going to get up and say, Marvel is coming to Walt Disney World. We figured it out. We worked out a deal. Universal needs the space. They don't want to use those characters. There's a lot of different reasons that it makes sense to happen now. I still think that is eventually going to come. And I think when it does happen, it's not going to be a single attraction, nor do I think it's going to be another Avengers Campus, unless it's another Avengers Campus, right? It's Avengers Campus East. It has to be different. I don't want to see a copy of what is in Disneyland. I want to see new attractions with newer characters, because what does that make me do? It makes me want to go visit not just Walt Disney World, but I want to see what's happening in the other parks elsewhere. And if you can connect those lands and those stories and those characters, so there is this world that is happening throughout all the Disney theme parks, the people that benefit are us, the guests. So what what would you like to see, or what characters maybe would you like to see in the Disney parks, in Walt Disney World? What would you envision? Again, you have full reign of Imagineering, you as well. What would you like to see in the Disney parks or on Disney Cruise Line?
Honestly, there's just so many characters that they can delve into, and beyond just the ones that they've used in the MCU, that the possibilities are truly endless. I want to see them do something beyond what they already did with Spider-Man, maybe a sort of swinging type of ride as opposed to the more gamified, like just kind of moving around screens. But that's kind of the concept I would like, but honestly, anything is possible.
Right, and we know in Disneyland, we're finally going to get that e-ticket attraction. That building, that Avengers building has been sitting there sort of empty for a long time. We know we are going to get this multiversal threat with King Thanos, which, again, Endgame was a number of years ago, so it's interesting that that's the story, especially with incredible characters like Doctor Doom coming in as sort of being the next, I think, long-time big baddie. But maybe that's something that they're saving for Walt Disney World. My little fingers are crossed, by the way.
I really enjoy at Avengers Campus where you do see all those characters come together. So I don't know yet any specific thing that I'm looking for, but I do want to mention, just a side note, that we do know how invested Disney is in Marvel, especially when it comes to the parks and especially the cruise line, because they just announced and are ready to roll out the Disney Adventure, which is going to be sailing from Singapore. And there's a ton of Marvel on that ship, and it's very, very focused on Marvel. So whatever they're going to do, we know that they're going to continue to invest in the Marvel story in any of the Disney experiences.
Right, and Disney Destiny, which is the next ship that's going to be here domestically, is going to have this overarching heroes and villains theme. So there are going to be exclusive Marvel-themed spaces that we haven't seen before. Now, look, on the other ships, there are some of those exclusive spaces, but they're for kids, right? The Marvel Superhero Academy is the place that I want to go and spend my time because, and if you've ever been on a cruise, go to the open house, because it is this immersive area where you have all these hands-on interactive exhibits, and you can meet Spider-Man, you can meet Black Panther, you can sort of virtually try on, a vibranium like Black Panther suit. You can do like an Iron Man adventure, but they're only for kids. And I think Disney has seen that and said, we need to make sure we not open up these spaces to adults, but create spaces for adults to play like kids and kids to be adults, right? Kids have the Imagineering labs so they can do and learn and create, but they also have the Superhero Academy, and I think that's what we're starting to see, and I think that's what the Disney Treasure has shown us. We want to create spaces for adults to play as well.
Which clearly we need, because we're all nerds and we want to be 8-year-olds with a credit card, and they want to take our credit cards. So give us reasons to go. And I don't think that there's going to be a lack of that ability, especially as the future comes along. And I'm with you. I hope there's a day when we are sitting at D23 and Josh or whoever gets up there and says, okay, guys, here is, the new fifth gate and it's Marvel. How incredibly cool would that be?
Okay, so
Really excited.
thank you very much. If Disney if Josh walks in the door and announces a fifth gate, there's going to be a Marvel-themed world, a Marvel-themed land, what or who would you want to see in it? Play Imagineer for the day. What do you want to see in it?
Ooh,
There you go.
well then.
You get a prize just for
You're gonna
saying
give him a
fantastic.
mint.
No, I'm not going to give one of your mints.
No, you've
I'm not. I don't have. Oh, I do have mint. Do you want a mint or do you want a keychain? All right.
I like to see Black Panther or the X-Men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. You can also have a mint. I'm sure nobody wants a mint. So you can have a keychain or a pin.
mints?
I think they're in the bag. And there is actually, so on the Disney Destiny, the Grand Hall, the sort of the center atrium, is going to be designed as a Wakanda-inspired, very regal, very majestic area. So they're very heavily leaning into Black Panther on the Disney Destiny. Peter Parker. Sorry, Ian? Guardians of the Galaxy. The current, what we
Rocket.
see now in the Guardians of the Galaxy, or the next iteration of Guardians of the Galaxy?
anything with Rocket.
He's looking to see, like, what am I supposed to say? Am I supposed to say the old one? Am I supposed to say the new one?
I need more Rocket. I'd just say that's one of my favorite characters. I would love to see more Rocket.
There's a huge $600 statue downstairs, by the way.
What? You should not tell me that.
Listen, it's your money. We're not married, by the way.
No.
Let me be very clear.
God, no.
Black Widow and her history. It's interesting how we're leaning into a lot of the characters that we've seen already, because look, I think this is a very interesting transitional time for Marvel. We are sort of not closing the book, but maybe turning the page towards a new chapter of the introduction of a lot of new characters. The first family we're going to see, and Young Avengers, Dark Avengers, Thunderbolts, all these other things.
If they ever get to that. Also, if you answer the question, come get a little giveaway thing.
You can run it out to him.
Deadpool.
Deadpool,
Yeah.
please.
You can also, just say anything. You can come up and get a prize. Yeah. All the way in the back row. Blade.
Blade.
Dude, they got to get their stuff together and make that movie already.
Yeah.
Although I have to tell you that when I saw Wesley Snipes in Deadpool and Wolverine, like my little Blade loving heart just exploded. I'm like, that single scene was one of the, other than the Endgame sort of portal finale, that was one of the best Marvel scenes in a long, long time. All in the back. Adam Warlock. So, and I think that's interesting, and I know you're way back there, but you can come on. We've seen teases, right, in the movies of characters that we think are coming next. Eternals, I'm looking at you. Will we ever see those characters come to fruition? Only Kevin Feige knows. So, Kevin, if you're listening. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I would love to see that come back. Really. I really enjoyed that series, and I
The
was
first few seasons.
Yeah. I liked it all. I liked it
Oh,
all.
don't hate on me. Sorry. I meant to
Seriously.
say all the seasons.
But it would be great to see that come back, because it could easily be woven into the rest of the stories.
Thank you.
Hey.
My man right here.
Wow.
Deadpool and Iron Man.
Good combo.
And Peter Quill. Listen, they've got 5,000 characters plus to choose from, so we're getting booted out. My man right here, you got the last question. I will also chat outside if you want. Go. Dr. Doom.
That'll be interesting.
Listen, I am incredibly excited. Quick show of hands. Last question of the day. Who thinks Robert Downey Jr. was the right choice for Dr. Doom? Who is so flame from the side? You're so mad that Robert Downey Jr. is Dr. Doom. I think it's all going to make sense. I think it is all going to make sense. Listen,
I think it was a cop-out, but that's just me.
this whole multiverse variant thing, and nothing is off the table. Thank you so very much for being here. I really appreciate it. Wait, do me a favor. If you scan that QR code, so again, my podcast is WDW Radio. We all are on there all the time talking about Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars. If you scan the QR, if you subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcast player and come up and show me that you've subscribed, don't unsubscribe right away. Just wait till you get your car. If you show me you're subscribed to a podcast, you can get a prize as well. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Wow.